Hello and welcome to Abracadabra. I am your host Jasveer. Today's episode will feature a journalist, a TEDx speaker, and the managing editor of The Logical Indian. She has trained and mentored over 500 youngsters over the past 7 years, and she is a leading figure in the digital journalism ecosystem. Please join me in welcoming Shweta Kothari to the podcast. Shweta, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jasveer. That was a very generous introduction. So, as you rightly mentioned, I've been in journalism for 7 years now. But the fact that I have trained about 500 students, I think the number is a little skewed because I've been obviously going around to various schools and training institutions and colleges to talk to students, but there's not really a fixed number to it. I would like to think it's much higher than that. But yes, I have been going around talking to students, talking to as many people as I can, and get them to be, media literate.
Right. I think let's both agree on the fact that you've made a huge difference to lives of huge number of youngsters. Right. Okay. Shweta, please. Right. Tell us about your journey. How did you start your career in journalism, and how did you get the idea? Tell the youngsters about something about that.
Okay, so I think I'll start from very early on, and I think that is going to actually interest a lot of youngsters. So I suppose this was when I was in class 7th or 8th. There were a lot of things that I was good at, right? So you get to know things that you like or you don't like. When you are growing up, you're about 17 or 16, or some of us are maybe 14 or 13, when we start realizing there are things we are good at, and then there are things we just don't like at all. It can be maths or physics or chemistry. But I knew from a very early on that I had a flair for reading, writing, speaking. So I loved, talking about specific topics. So I was never a very friendly sort of a person. So I wasn't what you called an outgoing person, but I liked talking about issues, and I liked talking about serious issues for that matter. I was a debater. I was also the head girl. And so, there were certain traits which I could identify that I had. And I thought, why not? Let's just make a career out of it. And this was about when I was in class 8th or 9th, I think. And that was the time when I started identifying potential roles or jobs that I can take up growing up. But then there was a time when I was in class 11th or 12th that I realized that every person around me was either trying to be at that point, either a doctor or an engineer, depending on whether you've taken, biology or maths. And those were the only two options. I'm not even going to talk about commerce or arts, because those weren't the option during my times. My school did not really offer arts, so I couldn't even think of having career in linguistics or career in any other artistic or creative subject. So the only two options was to either become a doctor or become an engineer. And so I took up engineering. I thought, this is who I should be ideally, because I'm a math student in class 11th and 12th. So I started preparing myself. So I went to various institutions, the pre-engineering institutions that you go to prepare yourself. And it was during that time, I suppose, I realized how exhausted I was. I couldn't take it after a certain, length of time. I think about a couple of months into the training after school, I knew that this is not me. I'm not meant to do this. And I want to do something that is more creative in nature, because I was really good at history and political science and, the SST subjects that you learn when you are in class 11th. Class 10th, because you leave that after class 10th and you have to pick between science and maths in CBSE. So you have to pick between, commerce, science and arts in CBSE after 10th. So yes, so a few months into my training, I realized I can't do this anymore. I'm too exhausted for this. And then I fell back upon my initial plan. So the plan always was to be a journalist. I knew in my mind from a very early on that if I have to make use of the talents that have been given to me, that I'm gifted with, then the only field I can do that is by either becoming a journalist or a politician, because I think those are the two professions that warrant you to be good at speaking and good at writing and good at perhaps a lot of creative and artistic fields. So then I realized politician, no way. It's not easy. I don't have a political background, although I still have political ambitions, but journalism came first. And immediately after class 12th, I went on to then, get a degree in journalism. So I got a bachelor's in journalism from Delhi University, and then I got a master's in journalism from University of Sussex, and that's how it all started. I am now 7 years into journalism. I started my career with business organizations in the beginning. So I was a reporter from very early on, a reporter and an anchor. I have worked with NDTV, CNBC for a brief period of time. I am currently working with the Logical Indian. So it's been a whirlwind sort of a situation, because I jumped from broadcast to TV in 2019 after realizing the cacophony of noise was not allowing me to say the right things. So, when you're very young, and just this is important for a lot of people who aspire to be journalists. When you're very young, you're driven. The reason you want to do it is because it's the right thing to do, because you're going to do good by the society, you're going to do justice by various issues around you, be it the problem with the healthcare system, the problem with the education system, the problem with infrastructure, the roads, water, housing, all these facilities around you. And when you're young, you can see the problem and you identify the problem and you want to do right by it. And then I thought, through my career as a journalist, I'm going to do right by it. But 6 years into media, in TV, I realized it's not possible, because TV was not giving space to these issues. TV was not giving space to issues that matter to people. And it was at that point in 2019 that I decided to make a switch. And since then, I've been a digital journalist, doing much better because finally I'm doing the right thing. Finally, I'm doing the journalism the way it's supposed to be done, the way it was taught to us in college in Delhi and in England, and the way I was told by my professors that they did right by people. They stood up for people, their stories. They put people at the heart and center of every story, the suffering, the joy, and the various emotions that are associated with doing the right journalism. So journalism is not just about political issues, it's also about social issues. It can be about entertainment and so on and so forth. Whatever journalist that you are, if you're not able to do right by it in the industry that you are, perhaps you can switch. And many people are not aware, but it is a possibility. I made a switch knowing that it can backfire badly, that I may just end up being nowhere. But I think I took the bait and I took the chance, and I'm happy that if it's not gone too bad down the road, I have at least a decent following and a decent number of people who are listening, who are currently with me and able to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And in the process, I'm able to do good for the country and for the society at large.
I think two things that I can really take out, sort of, which are my takeaways from whatever you described about your career. First is that you need to figure out what you're good at, and I think if you can figure that out, if you can know what your passion is, and if you can convert your passion into your profession, that makes you happy. And I'm reminded of a saying by Roy Bennett, attitude is a choice, happiness is a choice, optimism is a choice, kindness is a choice, giving is a choice, respect is a choice. Whatever choice you make, choose wisely. I think that sort of summarizes what you've explained over here. And second thing that I've really, really liked what you've talked about is the leap of faith. I think when you switched from TV journalism to social media and online with Logical Indian, I mean, that was a big decision, right?
It was, Jasveer, as you rightly pointed out, it was a leap of faith, because I knew that I'm giving up on a established career in TV. And while I may not be a very popular face, I still have a job that pays well. And I'm comforted by people around me who have so I have all the resources, and I'm comforted by people who are veterans in industry, right? So you have the right kind of backing, and you have the right kind of support system, and you have the infrastructure, and you have the resources and the money, versus perhaps an organization that is still building its credibility, and it's still getting there. It may be popular, but it does not have the sort of backing that a traditional media organization has. So it is, for many people around me, and as it was for me, a leap of faith, a big decision, a big switch to make. And a lot of people have at a lot of times struggled with it. A choice between choosing to be a small fish in a big pond versus being a big fish in a small pond. So for me, it was about being a big fish in a small pond, which meant that here is a place which I can guide and I can direct and I can make people do the right things, right? Versus being a very small fish in a very big pond, while I'm comforted, as I said, by the right people and the right environment. And I have the luxury of so much, such sort of flow of resources, so many cameras, such big studios. At the same time, I cannot effect a change. So if
True.
the editor has decided that we're going to bash Pakistan, then that's what I'm supposed to do. While at the same time, I know that my country is suffering. I know that there is a shortage, for example, today, there is a shortage of vaccines, there is shortage of oxygen supply, there's shortage of beds, and so on and so forth, and healthcare professionals, and everybody's overburdened. And so I knew that if I were at this point in time, when back in 2019, when I made a switch, I knew that if I were in digital, then I would have done something better. And that is what I ended up doing. I ended up choosing a small place where I could effect a change, where I did actually, go on to bring about a change. So I'll just quickly give you an example. So
Mhm.
if you look at what TV is doing today, right? So we're battling, as the country is battling second wave of coronavirus here in India, and many other countries have already sort of overcome the situation. So if, let's say, Israel has completely eradicated corona, and while we are reporting, more than 2 lakh positive cases on a daily basis for the last 5 to 6 days now. At a time like this, if you look at the coverage of TV channels in India, you will see them bashing Rahul Gandhi. You will see them, questioning the opposition. You will also see them trying to make a god out of the current existing political figures, the top existing political figures. I'm not going to name anyone. I think it's best that way. But trying to make superhumans out of our current politicians, people who are currently ruling. So they're not holding people accountable. They're not holding the government accountable, and that's what you're supposed to do as a journalist. Versus digital media organizations that are showing you the reality: overflooded crematoriums, number of people victims of COVID being burnt on a single funeral pyre, and the overburdened healthcare system. So all that is real, all that is actually happening on the ground, how people are currently fleeing Delhi, fearing that there's going to be another lockdown, or perhaps the current existing lockdown will be extended for more than a week. So all that reality you only get to know through social media and through online platforms, because somewhere TV media has lost its credibility and its moral compass. So now that I look back at it, I think I made the right choice. Perhaps I was just, it was the intuition, or maybe because I knew deep down inside me that this is not the kind of journalism I want to do. A lot of people know that they don't want to do this, but they continue to do this because it pays well, right? So
True.
monetary compensation is a big thing. Just to all our viewers listening, there are young journalists aspiring to be leading figures in the journalism industry tomorrow, hoping that it's going to pay them enough, but it does not. So if I were in TV media today, I would be getting double the income that I'm currently drawing. I left that because I wanted to do right. Now many people can't afford to do that. Let's also be honest.
Right.
Lot of people have a lot of financial liabilities. So a lot of journalists that I know have children. They have home loans to pay for, EMIs to cater to at the end of the month. So what do they do in a situation like that? They continue to be in their comfort zone. They continue to report as per the whims and fancies of the organization that they're reporting for. So if my organization wants me to talk about Rahul Gandhi, well, okay, fine, I'll talk about Rahul Gandhi rather than drawing accountability from Prime Minister or Home Minister or the ruling dispensation. So that's how it's going. And I'm really sad to see that online digital space does not really pay you well as it should. But at the same time, the job satisfaction that it gives you, I think that sorts of compensate for the loss of pay.
Right. I think truly a bold decision to move out of that typecast, TV journalist or a news anchor role to moving to a much more freer, social media. I don't know even if that is a word, but yeah, it's giving you freedom. I can sense the satisfaction in your voice, that now you are doing what you meant to do, away from that typecast role. So truly, bravo. Cheers to that, Shweta. And
Thank you.
from a common man's perspective, what you said is really meaningful. I spent about 6 months in India during COVID. So I moved to Canada only in August 2020. And believe it or not, the when the lockdown had initially started on the 22nd of March, and I can remember this date forever. I don't think so I'll ever forget that. That was the first day of Janta curfew. And then
Mhm.
23rd onwards, we've had a continuous lockdown till about June or July, right? And the first thing that me and my family, including my wife, my in-laws, my mom, my brother, something that we consciously decided was not to watch television news channels during the entire lockdown period, because they were so negative. They were always spreading negativity around the entire lockdown, rather than, and this is just my perspective from a common man, that they were talking about issues which did not matter. They were talking about issues which were causing a lot of discomfort to people who were watching. That's why we stopped watching it. And till date, it's been almost 1 year. It's been almost 7, 8 months in Canada now. We've not even watched a single Indian news channel. We've stopped watching them
Mhm.
completely. We rely on social media through channels which are vetted, which have been known to be logical, if I have to put it in the right words. But I follow
Mhm.
those channels. I'm not talking about the WhatsApp University or a Facebook University, but channels which really matter, like the Logical Indian, and there are others. Quaint is there. So a lot of them are there. So we rely on news on them. And if somebody like you has chosen to move away from the cash cow, which is the TV news journalism, to social media, which does not pay you even a single penny, that's something really says something about the career change that you've taken. And I think social media is the in thing. Instead of TV news channels, I've relied for the past 1 year on social media and web channels. So I think bravo to that. That's a very good decision that you've taken.
Thank
I,
you so much. Something interesting that you were pointing out. You said that uh, you relied on certain vetted channels, and I think that's what our viewers should do, our listeners should do, because there are lots of channels out there, and I think that it's important to put the point out, because there are lots of social media channels, lots of Facebook pages, lots of pages on various social media sites that tell you that they are going to report to you the hard facts, the actual facts. But unfortunately, they neither have the resources to do that, nor do they have a vetting process, which essentially means that social media or online journalism space has given rise to a lot of bogus, sites, and a lot of bogus pages and Instagram pages, or Snapchat accounts, or Facebook pages, and these pages sometimes they end up doing exactly the opposite of what was meant to be online digital space, which is to give factual, accurate information in a time bound fashion. And I think it's important for all our listeners and viewers to be actually aware of how and where they're consuming news. And just to give you an example, so again, going back to the beginning of COVID, and I was also at home. We were working from home that point in time, and my parents are a part of a lot of family groups on WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is one medium which never really tried to become a disseminator of information. I don't think that was ever the aim, that they are going to be a news platform, but they ended up becoming a platform for a lot of misinformation and the excess of information that was coming in. So you had family members who were telling you that, look, have this kada, or look, have this or have that, or breathing exercise, or this or that. That continues to be the fact, but people take that quite literally, and a lot of people did take that quite literally. Look, if you breathe this or these many times, or if you take long breaths, you'll not get corona. If you drink this, you'll not get corona. Some people also were advised to drink sanitizer. That happened in Western countries too. A lot of such instances were also reported from India. So uh, one has to be careful from where they're consuming the news. I think that's the bottom line. If you think that every message that comes in your inbox, or every time you get a group message, if you take that at its face value without really verifying it, without really going back to the root of it and trying to cross check it, it may turn out to be false. And in which case, it's worse. Let me tell you, it's worse than what TV is doing or print is doing. We often, as aware Indians, as Indians who are logical, as you put it, we often criticize TV for doing everything wrong. We often criticize print for being boring and for being perhaps too lethargic or too lazy, or because it comes the next day and we already know what's happened 12 hours prior. But at the same time, let's not forget, there is no point of knowing when what you know is incorrect, when what you know is falsehood, when what you know cannot be trusted. So therefore,
True.
it all boils down to us, the viewers, the listeners, of any platform that you're consuming, to verify what's being served to us. And I, in my present organization, I've done my best to ensure that everything that I put out at least is cross-verified and cross-checked. Now, as I mentioned, absence of resource means that I can't send out my reporter, right? I don't have a reporter who I can send out who can cross-verify. But I try to do that by either calling up the police station, calling up the local community center, the person involved in the news piece, or so on and so forth. So we try to reach out to whoever is involved in that news story, whoever is either giving that news story or at the receiving end of it, or is a stakeholder in it. So that is a very essential process, and that process needs to be followed. So every time you're tuning in, make sure you're tuning into the right platform, and it's not giving you its own views, but it's giving you the news that you deserve.
Absolutely. The keyword over here is verified and vetted channels. So I'll give you an example, Shweta, how I did it. So when initially all these videos, messages, WhatsApp messages, Facebook posts, Insta posts about that kada or that mixture came up, that can sort of prevent COVID-19. So I went online and I searched for a couple of channels wherein I found the same recipe. But I looked at the recipe, which was made by the official All India Institute of Ayurvedic Sciences Institute. So I think I can pretty much trust what that institute, that's a big institute in Delhi, and if they are suggesting something, it's going to be trustworthy. So that's just an example, guys. Whatever you hear or see on social media, make sure that you are verifying it. So I just wanted to quote a small paragraph that I had published on LinkedIn and Insta, Shweta, it's for
Sure.
social media, right? So social media is as good as the people who use it. It's a technology, and technology is neither good nor bad. It is the intention of those using it who are good or evil. Right? Control social media. Don't let it control you. Post responsibly, comment sensibly, and above all, use common sense while using social media. Debate logically and don't argue if you don't agree with someone. Use social media to connect, network, communicate, learn, support, nurture, and spread positivity. Above all, accept the fact that not everyone will agree with you.
Right,
Go through
Jasveer. I
the
mean, I mean that is the
yeah.
essential message that I think you've put it very beautifully.
Thank you. And I think the keyword over here is use verified channels. If you think that you're not getting the stuff that you require from television media, switch to social media, but make sure you verify everything that you intend to do, or the information that you are getting. Don't just blindly follow it. Let me ask you, as a career, you've taken a huge decision to move from TV to social media. So how has social media in general affected journalism? I mean, earlier programs were broadcasted on television, right? But there was no interaction between media, or let's say the news anchor, and public. But now every program that is broadcasted on TV is also on social media, right? Or the website. So people can actually interact with the news anchor, they can comment, they can even abuse. So, especially the role of female news anchors, how do you think it has changed in the era of social media?
You know, there are both pros and cons of how social media has affected our role and our job as journalists. So I'll tell you the pros first before I go to the cons. So the pros, of course, being, as you rightly said, we're more connected than ever, right? So we have now a space where we can directly talk to our viewers, our audience, and we can get real-time feedback on what we do, right? So if I'm pushing out a piece which my viewers don't like, they're going to call me out, and then they're going to say that this is shoddy, perhaps this is nonsensical, or even to a point that you're biased. So they don't mince words anymore. So they're going to directly give you a feedback on your face, whether you like it or not. And that's a very good thing, because then that allows you and gives you the time to change. So go back to the drawing board and relook at the content strategy and at the editorial strategy. That's number one. Number two, and I think that's a big pro, the fact that you are not going to be waiting anymore. So you have the information and someone doesn't want that to be put out. And that has happened with me when I was in TV. So I left TV during Pulwama attack. So this was around the time that Pulwama attack was being debated on TV, and there was a lot of sound, as I said, and a lot of bashing of a neighboring country without real content, without anybody asking the right questions. So if there is a terrorist attack happening on Indian soil, you have got to ask the ruling government on how it failed so massively. But obviously, given that there are paymasters who don't want you to ask the right questions, a lot of questions that I wanted to ask, I could not. And social media gave me that space. So when I made the shift, I could really hold the government accountable, the various agencies, the investigative agencies that failed, the intelligence agencies that failed to anticipate an attack of that nature, right? So that is again a very important pro of social media. So every information that anybody is trying to withhold, you can actually push out and ask the right questions, because you really don't have a paymaster who's sitting in their own comfort zone and telling you not to do this or not to do that. So you are free. So these are a couple of things that one has to keep in mind, that social media has given us this sort of advantage now to do the right thing, to say the right thing, as long as you believe in your heart with integrity that this is the right thing to do. Obviously, you don't have to compromise on national security. That goes without saying. There's Official Secrets Act. So lots of things that as journalists, you can't say, you can't put out, because the general public should not know it, right? So keeping all that in mind, those are the pros. But now let's look at the cons. And again, I don't think they sort of overpower the pros, the good things, but they are equally important. Social media has made journalists very vulnerable. So if I am today an online journalist, a digital journalist, as I call myself, I am very vulnerable to attacks. So I'll give you an example of late 2019. I made a video on a certain member of parliament. I would not like to name her. She was made a part of the defense committee, right? A committee by the Defense Ministry of India, and she has terrorism charges levied on her. She's not cleared of all the charges. She's been cleared of certain charges, other charges still stay. So I pushed out a video talking about the charges that have been leveled and whether it was right on the part of the government to make someone who's tainted a member of the Defense Committee, one of the committees by Defense Ministry. Immediately after that, I was attacked and trolled mercilessly, to the point where the picture of my social media profile on Facebook, it was distributed among right-wing channels, right? So faceless right-wing Hindutva channels, and they took a screenshot of my profile and they said, wherever you find this lady referring to me, they should beat me up, right? And they also said, shame on your parents, they gave birth to you and you are, you should go and die, you have no professionalism, and so on and so on. And it was very dirty. It was extremely vicious, and it really hurt me, because let's not forget, on social media, we also have our parents connected to us now. My parents, their pictures are also on social media. My siblings are there. My family is there. So you become very vulnerable. All of a sudden, you're exposed. That wasn't possible about 10 years back because there was no social media, or let's say social media was not that popular. So even if you had a profile, it was a locked profile and you were not connected to many people. And so people could hardly identify you, get your home address, get your office address, or get hold of your kith and kin or your family members. Now it's so easy for anyone to start messaging my friends, their mothers, as a matter of fact. You wouldn't believe when one of my friends said that my mother got a message about you. So that's when I
Oh,
realized that, look, this is very dangerous. This has made me so vulnerable. But again, it's the cost of being on
yeah.
social media, and one has to be
Yeah,
ready.
I think that's the ugly side of social media that you've talked about.
Yes, absolutely. So
That is the
that, and obviously various other ongoing issues with social media with
yeah.
respect to privacy, safety of journalists, and the fact that we are trolled, have to have a thick skin, cannot just afford to sit in a corner and cry, have to come out of it very quickly, turn around and start working again, because let's not forget, that's what we're here to do, work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the part of the responsibility that a journalist has is asking questions. It could be to the opposition, it could be to the current government, but and this is where I sort of disconnected myself from the TV news media. Instead of asking questions, we see them blaming. You rightly said the neighboring countries, and I'm kind of bored with that. How much can you blame the neighboring countries for your own misadventures? How long can you blame past leaders for the misfortune of current government? How long can you do that? So I think that accountability is missing from current media. That's why I sort of, and people may agree, people may not agree with me, but I'm talking from the point of view of my own self. That is the reason I disconnected myself from TV news media, because I thought they were biased, and they were talking nonsense. So that was the reason I did it about a year ago, and till date I have not seen a single news channel. I may have seen a clip or two on YouTube, but that's it. That's it. And then the farmer protests happened, so lot more chaos ensued. People started ignoring COVID. So I see a lot of negativity over there, and that's why I switched to social media, and the channels that I trust, that I vet, I check the information, and only then I believe. So that's the process that I follow. People may follow different process, but that's the feedback that even I have as a common man, that channels are
Mhm.
doing the same old thing for TRP, and not talking about the things that matter, but they keep talking, they keep playing that old record, घिसा पिटा hai. Doesn't bother me now, so doesn't interest me now as a viewer, or as a common man, right? uh,
Mhm.
Thank you for your view, Shweta. And we all know that media is divided, not just in India but globally. They are biased, they have their loyalties to a certain political party, or maybe a businessman, so they talk from their point of view only. It's a capitalistic society, right? So what do you think?
Absolutely.
What does a viewer like me, or a common man, needs to do to sort of have a positive view about media? What do we need to do? We've talked about what media needs to do. Now let's talk about you as a journalist, and what do you expect the viewers to do?
You know, it's a wonderful proposition, I'll be honest with you, Jasveer, because not many people ask, what should we do? We often ask what others should do for us, or what media should do, or what journalists should do. We never ask, what should we do as people? And there comes the responsibility of an active viewer, listener, someone who consumes the news. Your responsibility as a consumer is to know the right from wrong, is to know that journalists are meant to ask questions of the ruling government, full stop. Because if I keep asking questions of the past government, of the past administration, it's not going to solve your current problem. It's not going to solve that vaccine shortage. It's not going to solve that oxygen shortage. It's not going to build more crematoriums, more hospitals, give you better primary health care. Nothing. None of that will be possible if I keep questioning Nehru, right? So please
Right.
understand. I don't do it because I hate the ruling government or I love the opposition government. I do it because it is the right thing to do. My job is towards the people of this country. And as viewers, it is expected of you to know what journalists are supposed to do. What I see and what I sense, Jasveer, is a lack of understanding of what journalists and their essential job is. My job is not to be biased, so kindly don't tell me, why don't you ask Rahul Gandhi that? He's not in power. The day he is, I'll ask him the same question, right? It does
True.
not matter whether it's the Congress, the BJP, the TMC, the RJD. It can be anyone in power, and when they are in power, if they are in power, I will be asking them the same set of questions as far as their failures, their policies is concerned. And if they are doing well, I'm going to make sure that I bring that up too. So let's say if the economy is doing really well during the Modi government, if there's been a lot of inflow of money into the system, if we know that suddenly the stock exchange has risen, we know that petrol prices are doing well. None of that is happening, by the way, but if that happens to be the case, I will bring that up too. So if there are policies in which the government is doing extremely well, it is my duty and responsibility to make people aware. But if it's failing, I will make people aware of that as well. So as viewer, you're supposed to know the basic essence and duty of a journalist, which is to ask questions of the ruling government and appreciate the fact that they're doing it despite all the hatred and all the negativity. Secondly, whenever I tell you the wrong news, whenever I tell you a news that you don't like, so whenever I tell you a news which is, let's say, negative, not wrong, negative, and you don't like it because, obviously your affiliation is towards a certain person, you love that certain person, and you cannot see anything wrong being said about them. Please know that I'm not doing it because I love them or I don't, or I hate them or I dislike them. I'm doing it because it's my duty. Again, it all boils down to what I'm supposed to do. So it's not my love or hatred for this country. It's my duty as a journalist that makes me write or say what I want to do. And let's not forget, if you do not ask the right questions, if you do not identify the problems, you can never have a better country. So anybody who says that, this journalist is defaming India, right? That's one of the most frequent charge that is levied on me or on many journalists, that, look, your attempt is to defame the country. Look, you're talking about everything that's bad in the country. No, my attempt is not to defame the country. My attempt is to make sure that we do away with the problems. Only then can the country proceed. So remember, if you keep thinking you are in the best present state of in this country and you're doing economically very well and your healthcare system is robust and your infrastructure is unmatched, then you will never get anywhere. Then you'll remain where you are and you'll remain complacent. So it is essential for you to know everything that is bad so that you can ask and hold your administration accountable. So I'm going to hold the government accountable, but you're going to hold them accountable when you're voting for them. And it is when you hold your government accountable is when the country progresses. So I don't hate the country to be pointing at the flaws in the country. I love the country to be pointing at the flaws in the country. And I'm doing so at the risk of my well-being, at the risk of, everything that comes with being a journalist. So let's be more sensitive. My appeal, my expectation to viewers would be to be more sensitive to why someone is doing what they're doing. Try and put in more thoughts before you troll someone, before you you call someone names on social media, before you start abusing my parents. Just try and understand. It's very easy for someone to just stand up and say she's biased, and I've heard that so much. I mean, you can look at my social media posts and one or the other person will be writing on my social media that she's biased and she only questions the ruling government or she only questions the opposition. I try and ask the right questions, whether it is of the ruling government or it is of the opposition. Let's not forget, the opposition is failing in this country, right? So I'm not appreciative of even that. I will hold the opposition also to account. It is a failure of an opposition, its inability to hold the government accountable. What's the duty of the opposition? To ensure that the ruling government is making sure all its promises made in its election manifesto are upheld, that people are given the rights they deserve, the facilities they deserve, and be given the policy mandate that they deserve, be given everything that they were promised, right? And so this opposition, the current opposition we have in the country, has failed at that miserably too. So I don't think it's a win-win situation for me as a journalist. For me, it's even worse, because I'm really fighting two-front battle here. And
True.
I'm expecting the viewers to be a little more sensitive and understanding of why we do what we do, right? So don't just simply sit there and write ugly things to people. Let's be more understanding. Let's understand. I'm not asking you to sympathize with me, abuse me all you want. You are supposed to hold me accountable. I'm answerable to my people. I'm answerable to my audience. But kindly understand the position from which I'm coming. This is what was taught to me. This is what the essence of being a good journalist is. So ask me the right questions and hold me accountable on the right parameters. I think that is what the viewers have to do today.
I think the key word when it comes to commenting or arguing with somebody is to be constructive. Otherwise, you end up fighting, and otherwise you end up arguing with people. I think what I see is that we need to be more creative, constructive as a viewer when we talk about the feedback on social media or about news channels. I think you rightly said we as citizens need to be more constructive and more responsible now. I think now is the time. COVID is a very good learning opportunity. I'm a learning and development professional, and I find learning opportunities in really unlikeliest of the situations. So I saw this as a learning objective. That's why I started the podcast. I moved to Canada in the peak COVID times, but I didn't give up. I use social media to my benefit. I learned a lot, and I did a lot of online sessions. So I think that's the time that viewers in general, be it social media or television, need to be more constructive. They need to be
Absolutely,
more
absolutely.
positive. Yeah, I
And
think that.
when you say constructive, I think it's more of a more encompassing word. So I would say I think I would be a little more specific to that, and I would say not just be constructive, also try to be more empathetic and try to understand
Yes,
someone else's point of view too. Try
exactly.
to hold them accountable on the role, the value of their job, right? You can't be
True.
asking a doctor, why are you telling us if there is a shortage of oxygen? Right? So you can't do that. And that
Yeah,
has been the case in this country, unfortunately. Doctors are beaten up for their
yeah,
jobs. and
yeah.
and this was it brings me back a memory I have of 2017. This was when children were dying of encephalitis in UP, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you must be aware of that
Mhm.
crisis in Uttar Pradesh. And star anchors from various channels, they went to the hospital in UP and they started bashing the doctors. And I really wondered, and they're very high in seniority, right? So these anchors have 20-25 years of experience, and they know how it's supposed to be done. They know how it functions, the administration, who procures the items, who get them into the hospital. Doctors are not responsible. A pediatrician there is not responsible for children dying. He's doing his best. He's attending to multiple patients. He's in the hospital for consecutive days and days. So you can't ask him that question, right? You need to hold the government accountable there. That poor doctor is doing what he can. So kindly please know what my job role is and ask me relevant questions as per my job role.
True. I think true. Rather than blame game, we all need to look at things logically and sort of decide if this is right or this is wrong. Ultimately, it comes down to that. And social media has given you so many resources. Internet has given you so many resources. There are so many articles available on Wikipedia. You just don't need to blindly follow something, agree with somebody. Just find out ways to vet it if it's verified or not. And above all, like Shweta said, be empathetic and be constructive, right? Shweta, thank you so much for the enlightening conversation. I have enjoyed our conversation. I hope the listeners also enjoy it. And guys, if you don't agree with me or Shweta, be constructive in your feedback. Don't just start abusing us. We know many people may not agree, but I'm open to a discussion. If you are open to a discussion, please come on my podcast. Right, Shweta. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for taking time out.
Thank you so much, Jasveer. I had a wonderful time, and as Jasveer pointed out, very happy to engage. You can feel free to engage with me on any of my social media handles. I would love to respond, love to answer any queries that you have. But make sure these are difficult times, and make sure you are asking questions. Don't stop asking the right questions. You can be angry, you can be sad, and I know a majority of you who have written to me, who've written to us, I have lots of things to say because these are very difficult times, and I will make sure that I answer. I'm sure Jasveer will too. But make sure you're constructive and make sure you're empathizing with people around you at this point in time.
Truly, Shweta, thank you so much. I look forward to more content from you. So, guys, that was Shweta Kothari for you. You can follow her on social media handle and LinkedIn, and she's also part of the Logical Indian. Right, guys, thank you so much for taking time out to listen to us. I will be back with another episode very soon. Till that time, take care and stay safe. Thank you.